Bring in Chris Mannix, the senior NBA writer from Sports Illustrated. Is it different, Chris, that how we look at Kawhi if he joins the Lakers and makes them a super team as opposed to Kevin Durant joining Golden State?
I think it's different because of the circumstances. I mean, Kevin Durant, when he joined Golden State, was just beaten by Golden State. If the Lakers had knocked off the Raptors in the finals and Kawhi had jumped, I think we'd probably have a different opinion of this possibility. But if he joins the Lakers, I just think people will say he wanted to go back to Southern California, and the Lakers, I guess, offered him the best chance to win, even though I'm not entirely convinced of that, Dan. I mean, I keep hearing this narrative that, they would be a super team, no question, with the three guys, but I don't know that they'd be the favorite next year. I mean, you have to fill out that roster somehow, and it's not 3-on-5 or 3-on-7 or 8 when you look at teams that are deep in that way. I mean, I just think the first year they'd certainly have some trouble winning if Kawhi wound up there.
What is the holdup here? What is Kawhi waiting for?
I don't know that he's waiting for anything. Like everybody else, it's been tough to get any kind of information out of both his camp and the people inside the other organizations, because there's so much at stake for all three of these teams that nobody's trying to tip any hand one way or the other. I just think Kawhi, in his first foray into real free agency, with a lot more than just where he wants to play and the type of players he wants to play with at stake. Remember, the medical stuff really matters to Kawhi Leonard. I mean, the Raptors did a great job last year of, kind of patching him together for that 60 regular season games in the final 24 of the playoffs. And even at the end, I mean, he was battling through something as he made it all the way to the finals. So, I think Kawhi and the people around him are doing a lot of research on just what kind of programs these teams can put them on. This is why the Raptors, I don't want to say feel confident, but at least have to feel like they've got a good chance, because they've proven to Kawhi Leonard that, that what their medical staff can do and how they operate, it worked for him. Beyond the basketball stuff, if Kawhi's thinking about his long-term health, the Raptors certainly can show him something positive.
The best place for Kawhi Leonard, NBA-wise, is where? Like the league. What would the league want?
I think people would assume that the league would want Kawhi in LA because it's a ratings bonanza, just like it was with Golden State and when they played and they were successful. But that's just never been Adam Silver's MO. I mean, Adam Silver, every time I talk to him, and he said this in other interviews as well, but he just kind of craves that NFL-style parity, like that, just to have 7, 8, 9 teams begin the playoffs with a realistic chance to win a championship. So even though the ratings kind of tanked last year, because Toronto was in it and you don't get that Canadian market and the U.S. Nielsen ratings, I think the NBA loved it. I think having a new team win a championship for the first time, I think they viewed that as a net positive. So I think if all things being equal, I think the league would either rather have Kawhi go to Toronto or go to the Clippers, which would be a good team, but not a super team by any stretch.
He's Chris Mannix, the Sports Illustrated senior NBA writer. I mentioned this, and I'm sure nobody else in America will today, but Willie Cauley-Stein to Golden State I thought was a great sign. I thought that was a great, sneaky little pickup for them. What are they getting?
I agree. I mean, Willie Cauley-Stein he's maddeningly inconsistent at times, and I don't think Sacramento was in any kind of great rush to bring him back. But for what Golden State does, he kind of fits what they try to do. I mean, he's an up-tempo guy who can shoot a little bit from the outside, from mid-range, and can just be athletic out there on the floor. That's just another body that they can pair now with Looney and some of the other guys they have in that mix. I mean, I still think that this year's kind of I don't want to call it a gap year, but it's certainly a year that you're not anticipating that Warriors doing anything. But it's a 5 to 7 month recovery time for Klay Thompson. Even if it's on the back end of that, he could be back in early 2020. And if he can work his way into shape by the time the playoffs come around, I don't know that you can dismiss that team as being a finals contender. They're certainly not what they were, but man, I mean, Cauley-Stein, mixing up with Looney at the 5. If Draymond continues to play well, if some of the other pieces they've picked up, kind of fit into place, they've still got in that Western Conference a shot to win that conference.
Yeah, and then I saw on the mothership where somebody was saying that they wouldn't make the playoffs this year, and I'm thinking,
well, they're saying like a little bit of everything on the mothership, Dan. But there's perspectives coming from all sides on 24-hour programming there.
Help me understand this because, and I said it yesterday, and I think I got an answer yesterday, but the Knicks didn't offer the max amount of years to Kevin Durant. And I said, okay, they're being prudent, but I don't think that Kevin Durant was going there. If Kyrie was going to the Nets and they wanted DeAndre Jordan to go to the Nets, no matter what the Knicks are offering, I didn't think KD was going there.
Yeah, I think how it was explained to me, because this is being spun in like a million different directions, like Kevin Durant wanted to go to the Knicks, but the Knicks wouldn't offer max. That, to my understanding, that couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, in the last, in the 3 or 4 days prior to free agency, Kevin Durant had really started to zero in on the Nets. That's what I've been told. And some of that had to do with Kyrie Irving. Some of that had to do with the fact that the Nets have built themselves an infrastructure there where the closet isn't empty, for them to step into. They've got some good players on that roster, and the Knicks had kind of were basically out of consideration. So there was certainly some reluctance on the part of James Dolan to offer a full max to Kevin Durant, but it never got to that point. He didn't take any meetings with the Knicks. He didn't. From what I understand, didn't have a serious conversation with the Knicks about signing there. So it's sort of much ado about nothing in a way. I mean, if we were having a conversation about Kevin Durant saying I want to be a Knick, and the Knicks saying, well, we're going to give you $10 million your first year and max you out in the years after, or something like that, then we can pummel the Knicks into oblivion. But it just wasn't the case. Kevin Durant, because of everything I said, was leaning towards the Nets pretty strongly in the last couple of days and weeks.
Yeah, it felt like everybody had just penciled in. We had a story, and then we kept pushing the story because that's the story we wanted. That was KD was going to go to the Knicks, and Kyrie would join him. Somehow they'd win the lottery. They'd have Zion Williamson, and all of a sudden the Knicks are back.
I mean, that's the thing, Dan. Only the Knicks faithful can be just mortified and upset by something that had an 86% chance of not happening, which is the landing the number 1 overall pick. I mean, it just is mind-numbing how that came to pass. And look, I think the reason that we kind of, and the reason I did anyway, like that, I thought that the Knicks would be a front runner for Durant early on, and during the season, was the Porzingis deal, because I couldn't wrap my head around the idea that the Knicks would trade Porzingis without at least some kind of head nod from whether it's Kyrie's team or Durant's team about them coming there. Like they gave away Porzingis for quarters on the dollar, and you had to assume that another shoe was ready to drop. I mean, the Dolan interview on the radio was goofy, but I don't put any stock in what he actually knows. But they've got some smart people in that front office. Scott Perry's been around. Steve Mills at least has been around. Like that, to trade Porzingis, that to me is the biggest mistake they've made in the last couple of years. They can spin it all they want and say Porzingis wasn't going to be there. I just don't believe that. I mean, no player, I don't think any player ever, Dan, has turned down a max contract extension coming off that rookie deal, not the least of which is a guy coming off an ACL tear. You're never going to convince me that Kristaps Porzingis would not sign a 5-year deal with the Knicks.
Is James Dolan actually bad for the Knicks? Like, does this all factor into these free agents? I don't know if he's there day to day, but like, what role is he playing in all of this? Because he's certainly getting all the blame that nobody wants to play for the Knicks.
Yeah, I think he has to bear the brunt of it because he's the one constant in all this. In their 2 decades now of dysfunction, he's the one guy that's been there, and he puts himself into the public eye in very bizarre ways. And he has created this perception that he will inject himself into basketball-related decisions, and he will be overly involved in the process. Moreover, I think there are two types of owners that players want to be around. They want to be around a Steve Ballmer because of the positive energy that he kind of exudes and how much money that we know he pours into the franchise, or they want to be involved with guys behind the scenes. Like, I mean, how many people in the NBA could have picked Peter Holt out of a lineup in the last 2 decades? I mean, I covered the league, and I don't think I could. But Peter Holt was the type of guy in San Antonio that just, empowered R.C. Buford, empowered Greg Popovich, and then got out of the way. And, Joe Lacob in Golden State was a little more front and center to a degree, but he never stepped on Bob Myers or Steve Kerr. I mean, James Dolan just seems like he's putting his stamp on it, whether it's putting his own guy, Steve Mills, in charge of basketball operations or involving himself personally and stuff. I mean, that's the kind of thing that if you're looking for something that could tip the scale, that's it. I mean, when James Dolan operates like that, that can tip the scale one way or the other.
Why do you think Golden State is retiring Kevin Durant's jersey?
I assume they're retiring Brian Cardinal's jersey, right? I mean, he was 35 back in the day. Yeah. I mean,
it's a PR move here.
It is, but I mean, can you kind of see him? The guy was a 2-time Finals MVP there. I mean,
I know.
He brought them I mean, they don't win without Kevin Durant. Those 2 championships. As simple as that.
Is
Iguodala's
jersey getting retired?
I don't know. That's where you get into like a slippery slope, right? Like you start to wonder, like the guys that were part of these championships for a number of years. I mean, you're going to retire Steph. You're going to retire Clay. Draymond, I assume, if he signs one more contract, maybe you can retire his number. But you're fast getting into like Celtics territory where they're going to start putting names up there, like Luskatov, and like put Steph up there instead of his number at some point.
Thank you, Chris. We appreciate your time as always.
You got it, Dan.
That's Chris Mannix, senior NBA writer, Sports Illustrated.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune into Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV. Stream for free on BR Live or download the Dan Patrick Show app.